This is the review for the Chapter 9 quiz, which should be taken sometime after Lesson 9.4 or 9.5. If you watch this video, then you should do very well on the quiz because I took the questions right from the quiz and I just changed the numbers a little bit. So on number 1 and 2, if you're asked to determine whether a relationship is a function, then you need to understand a couple of different strategies in order to do that. One of them is to make a graph and plot the points. Over 4, down 1, over 4, up 5. And then you can see that those 2 points would not pass the vertical line test, and so that is not going to be a function. Another way is to look at the domain values. The domain values 4 have 2 different range values, and that's a no-no if you're trying to make a function. You also have 2 and 2 domain values going to 2 different range values. So number 1 is no, not a function. And then when it says to explain, you could say because one of the domain values has 2 different range values. You could also say it would not pass the vertical line test when graphed. For number 2, we have unique domain values, and that right there is a reason to say that yes, it is a function. Okay, we're just looking for no domain values to repeat. And if they do repeat, then they have to go to the same y value. Okay. For number 3, it says to find 4 solutions, and it says to write your solutions as ordered pairs. Okay, so I'm going to set up 4 ordered pairs for me to fill in numbers for x. I can pick any number I want. I always pick 0 because it's the easiest one to work with. 0 times -3 is 0. 0 minus 5 is -5. Put in 1. -3 times 1. Again, we're plugging that into the equation for x. So -3 times 1 is -3. -3 minus 5 is -8. I'm going to put a -1 in. -3 times -1, I'm going to put that back into the original equation. Okay. And when I do that, -3 times -1 is a +3. And then 3 minus 5 is -2. And finally, I'll pick the number 2. -3 times 2 is -6. -6 take away 5 is -11. You may or may not have the same answers as me. It really depends on what you choose for your x values. Okay, for number 4, I'm going to do the same exact thing. Write down 4 ordered pairs and pick some numbers for x. Okay, if you want to be crazy and pick the number 100 for x, that's fine. -100 plus 12 would be a -78. Actually, that would be a -88. Okay, if I pick 0, 0 plus 12 is 12. 1, I have to pay attention to that negative sign. That's -x, or the opposite of x. So if I pick 1 for x, the opposite of that is a -1. -1 plus 12 is 11. And then if I pick in the number -1, it's the opposite of x. And so if x is -1, the opposite of that is a +1, and +1 plus 12 is 13. Again, you might have different ordered pairs than I do, but as long as they satisfy the equations and our solutions, then you should be good to go. For number 5, it says to graph the equation. Of course, if it's in slope-intercept form, that makes it very simple to find the x and y, actually to graph it. But one thing that might be a little bit more difficult is to find out the x and y intercepts where they cross the axis. So in this case, I'm not going to use my slope-intercept form to graph that. I'm just going to make 2 ordered pairs, one with x as 0 and then one with y as 0, because those are the 2 places where they cross the x and y axis. So if I put 0 in for x right here, I get 0 minus 3, so -3. That point is the y-intercept, so I'm going to put a little circle right there at 0, -3. And if I put 0 in for y equals 2x minus 3. 0 equals 2x minus 3, plus 3 plus 3, and I get 3 equals 2x. Divide by 2, divide by 2, x equals 3 halves, or 1 and 1 half, or 1.5. And so on my on my x-axis, I'm going to put a dot right there, and it's not going to be very easy to do that with my tools that I have on here. So I just have a little, I'm going to have to draw it a little bit different here. Lead up to it. That's where it's supposed to be, somewhere on the x-axis at 1.50. Okay, so my line looks something like that, and the x and y intercepts, 0, -3 is the y-intercept, and 1.50 is the x-intercept. For the next problem, it says to find the constant rate of change. And the constant rate of change is found by taking the change in y, or y divided by x, and seeing if that's constant. In this case, it is telling me that it is a constant rate of change. So all I have to do is make sure that 25 divided by 10 is the same thing as 50 divided by 20, and that's the same thing as 75 divided by 30. So we get 2.5 here, and we get 2.5 here, and we get 2.5 here. So the constant rate of change is equal to 2.5. Okay. For number 7, it says the equation y equals 1.99x represents the cost, y, for x downloaded songs. Is it a direct variation? Well, number 1, a direct variation has to pass through the origin at 0, 0. And in this slope-intercept form, there is no y-intercept or plus b value, and it does pass through the origin at 0, 0, and that makes sense. If you buy 0 songs, you're going to pay $0. So if I graph that, 0 songs cost $0. And if you buy 1 song, it's going to be $1.99. So 1 song is $1.99. 2 songs is going to be $4.98. No, not $4, $3.98. So it is a direct variation. For 1, it passes through the origin at 0, 0, and also there's a constant rate of change of 1.99. So that's a good explanation for number 7. Number 8, it says to find the slope that goes through those points. To find the slope, we can do a couple of different things. We could graph them on a coordinate plane, but that gets to be a little bit tricky because if you don't have graph paper handy, it's harder just to estimate when you're graphing it by hand. The easier way to do it is take the 2 y values and subtract them. So I'm going to say 4 minus a -3 over the 2 y values, 5 minus 5, 5 minus 5. Well, what we get here is 7 over 0, which is an undefined slope. And if I actually graph those 2 points, over 5, up 4 is right here, and over 5, down 3 is right here. That's a vertical line. Does not pass the vertical line test. It's not a function, and it's an undefined slope. So slope dude would be going down this undefined slope, saying undefined. Number 9, it says to find the slope. So I'm going to take 3 and -3. Oh, sorry, 3 and 3. So I'll take 3 minus 3, and then 6, -6, and a -9. So -6 take away a -9. What I get there is 0 over 3, and 0 divided by 3 is 0, and so that is a 0 slope. And if I would have graphed those out, I would have gone -6, 3, and -9, 3, and they would have fallen on the same horizontal line, and a horizontal line is a 0 slope. Lastly, number 10, I think the numbering got off maybe somewhere here. 8, 9, 10. The total expenses for a small business owner varies directly. So varies directly. We know it's going to be in the format of y equals mx. Or as I explained in the lesson video, y equals kx. Passes through the origin at 0, 0 if it's a direct variation. It says that the owner spends $720 if a consultant bills for 8 hours of work. So we're going to take that 720 divided by 8 to find the constant of variation, which is 90. So we're finding out that they spend, or he spends $90 for each hour. So to write that into an equation, like the number 10 is asking us to do, we would write that as y equals 90x. We're simply substituting that 90 in for the slope or the constant, and so that would be the answer to number 10. Hopefully this helps. If it doesn't, or you have additional questions, make sure to ask before you take the quiz, because the quiz is a summative grade, and I want to make sure that you have all the resources necessary to do well on that.